Trial Lawyers University, where the Titans come to train. Produced and powered by LawPods.
Well, we got Sean Claggett here, and Sean's just rolling in fresh off a trial out of Portland, Oregon, that he did with a couple of my buddies up there, Aaron Tillman and Mark Johnston. And so, Sean, great to have you back here, and we're getting ready, and we're like 57 days away from the greatest trial lawyers event in the greatest city in the world. Am I right? What's the greatest city in the world, Sean?
Las Vegas, baby. Let's go.
That's right. When Sean told me it's the greatest city in the world about 2.5 years ago, I'm like, shit, I got to move there. He's like, you're an idiot if you don't move here. Next week, I lived in Vegas. So you see, Sean's very persuasive.
Well,
very persuasive.
It's certainly a lot more tax-friendly than California.
Well, anything's more tax-friendly than California, but it's a little hotter here in the summertime than California.
It is difficult here in the summer with the heat.
Difficult?
That's about to break. That's about to break.
Oh, trust me. It's very good to be able to get up in the morning and sit out on my balcony at 6:30 and only be 80 degrees instead of 97.
It's going to be in the 60s next week in the morning.
I can't wait. And I'm going to be here, so I'm psyched about it.
I know, me too. I'm excited I think everybody in Vegas waits for that this summer. You know, it's like in the East Coast, everybody waits for the winter to end. And on Vegas, it's like, gosh, just that first morning where you wake out and it's not hot. You know, because you get about 3 months where it just never cools down.
That's why it's important to travel other places. Very important to travel other places during that time. So, Sean, this trial that you just rolled in off of, tell us a little bit about that trial.
Yeah, it was a med mal case that involved a 43-year-old gentleman who went in for a colonoscopy, and he was killed. As a result, he suffered catastrophic brain injury. He was a high risk medically for anesthesia. He was borderline. They had him as an ASA 3, which is a designation for anesthesia purposes. If you're an ASA 4, you're going to have to have your anesthesia done in a hospital setting. This was done in an ambulatory surgical center. And so there was just a high risk situation because he had obstructive sleep apnea. He had a Mallampati score of 3, which is basically just the way your mouth is formed and the airway issues that you have, without getting too technical. And so he had a thick neck. He just had some risk factors. So they go in, they put him under the propofol, and within 5 minutes, he's starting to have troubles breathing. That's documented. And then by about 6 minutes later, he's not breathing at all, and they never get the airway. And for 19 minutes, they don't call code, they don't call 911, they don't do CPR. They just sit there and the guy doesn't breathe, and he ultimately dies. Now, the case was complicated. Self-inflicted. The only reason why this case was complicated at all was because we settled with the anesthesiologist before trial. And that was done for reasons that were the client wanted a result. And so we honored that and created a very difficult trial against the other defendants because we knew that they would then be blaming
the empty chair.
We have an issue up on appeal. We think the court maybe got this wrong. We believe we when we settled, we maintained our ostensible agency claim. And the judge who disagreed, not the trial judge was phenomenal. But the judge who handled the motion work, the way it works in Oregon, your trial judge is different than your motion judge. And the judge that ruled on the motions ruled against us on every single motion, basically, that mattered. And that was one of them. And we did not believe that that was the right decision. So while we thought we settled with the anesthesiologist and maintained an ostensible agency claim, that was disposed of by the motion judge. So that issue is going to go up on appeal. We still think that the overall verdict may still be in play because of that. But long and short of it, the trial really was the remaining defendants blaming the anesthesiologist 100%. So you had this massive empty chair that we had to overcome. We knew from running data that they would never win on that. The data said that the anesthesiologist was going to pick up roughly 57% of the blame. So we knew that they were going to pick up around 40. We were hoping to push it to more 50-50, 60-40 on the remaining defendants. As you know, with the verdict, we were not successful in that. And the anesthesiologist actually took 60%. So pretty much in line with what the data suggested. So, but, still worth doing the trial because we got 24.6 million and change, and the remaining defendants are on the hook for 10 million.
Got it. And what'd you settle with the anesthesiologist for, if you could say?
It's confidential.
All right. So you can't say.
Can't say.
Can't say. All right. Well, now we got a backdrop of that story. And how long did that trial take?
3 weeks.
And so for this 3-week trial that was in Oregon, when did you start working on this case?
So our firm got involved earlier on in this case, but because of trial schedules that have been kind of crazy coming out of COVID, we didn't really meaningfully start working on this case until probably March of this year. And then there was David Creasy from our office that went and did all the depositions, handled all the discovery with Mark Johnston and Aaron Tillman up in Oregon. I didn't get involved and really start looking at this case until about 2 weeks before trial.
So those 2 weeks before trial, when you start submerging yourself, what are your processes to get ready on the day of?
Yeah, so let me say that a little bit differently. We had work days, and Jordan Logan was putting together the opening statement.
So a work day, tell us what a work day is.
So it's where the team gets together. So Mark and Aaron would come down to Vegas, and we did work days down here for 2 days leading into like the month before. So we went up to Oregon the week before the trial to do all our final trial prep. But about a month before that, Aaron and Mark had come to Vegas, and we all got together and did work days putting together the opening statement. So we did that, and originally we had done it with both defendants, so we had to modify it, obviously, along the way after we settled with the anesthesiologist. Because that mediation took place like a month before trial.
All right. And so you have all this stuff done that Jordan and your team has done for you prior to you really focusing. But then when you focus for those last 2 weeks, what is that process?
So, I mean, I'll read every deposition in the case. On the witnesses I'm going to take, I'll read it actively, meaning I'll go through and actually annotate the whole depo, key points, clip them for impeachment purposes on cross. If there are issues, I'll write out all my questions that I intend to ask the witness, and then have that all laid out so it's all pre-prepared, so that we have each witness packaged up with questions, the exhibits that we're going to use. We have them marked and highlighted for the trial tech person that's helping with trial. The deposition impeachment. So when we ask a question, we have the actual question and answer, so we can impeach them directly, so it's smooth at trial, so you're not wasting time looking for it, because you lose the impactfulness when you're looking for something. And so we do that, and then the week before trial, usually we'll go 3 to 4 times running voir dire and opening, and practicing that, and then making adjustments to presentation, and maybe even some slides if there's some confusion. And there almost always is things that we can tighten up a little bit once you do a full dress rehearsal. And so, and in this particular case, it was kind of interesting because when I first gave the opening, I was fired up. And in Portland, that wasn't playing well, the emotion. And so I took it down the second time. And by the third time, I was really probably gave the most Rick Friedman-ish, like really calm demeanor opening I've ever given.
Well, it's on CVN, so we'll
yeah,
take a look at that.
Yeah, and by the time when I gave the opening at trial, I think it's the best opening I've ever given in my career.
I'll be the judge of that.
And well, you can judge it all you want. But I will tell you that the reality is that it was a very zen moment, because I was just so present. And when it got done, it was like I wasn't even there. I was just so in it. It's hard to describe being in that zone, like so 100% in the zone. And I was there, and it was a cool professional experience because I don't know if I've ever been 100% in that zone before, like I felt during this trial. It was really,
On Friday, we're going to do a webinar. Of course, this podcast won't come out before then, but, people can watch it, if they have TLU on demand. But that's going to be pretty cool because you're going to be doing that webinar is going to have, how you guys prepare, the work days and the opening and what else for, is that webinar going to help people understand as far as the processes that you use to get the verdicts?
I mean, a big part of it is just looking, kind of going behind the scenes and seeing and understanding what the process is for success and what does it look like and why what we're really hoping that, our goal with our trial college and everything else we're doing in all these podcasts and webinars is to educate people that you see these big results over and over and over and over and over again. And it's not because we're the most talented trial lawyers on the planet. It's because we're the most prepared. And we have a process that is unique to every case, but the process itself is a process of preparation. And when you prepare correctly, you're going to do well. What they say, you train the way you fight and you'll fight the way you train. And so if you're lazy leading into a trial, you're going to be lazy in trial, and mistakes are going to happen, and you're not going to be prepared, and things will happen, and you'll be caught off guard. And, look, the question I ask people is, what type of lawyer are you? Are you a 4-figure, 5-figure lawyer? Are you a 5-figure, 6-figure lawyer? Are you a 6-figure, 7-figure lawyer? Are you a 7-figure, 8-figure lawyer? Are you an 8, 9-figure lawyer? Everybody's got to answer that question brutally honest and self-reflect about what type of lawyer they are. And I say that because usually the attorneys are not getting big results, have huge volumes of cases. And so they can only be what they can be. And that is, they're the 5- and 6-figure lawyer that's settling most cases for 15 to 25,000. They get a few in the 100, couple in the, mid 6 figures, and that's about it. And that's a lot of lawyers that are out there. And then you have other lawyers that you see over and over and over again that are getting these big verdicts. And then you ask them, well, how many cases are you working on? 3. Oh, okay. So when you ask yourself, and then people are like, well, I want to be an 8-figure lawyer. I'm like, well, what are you doing to get there? Are you keeping your volume? You can do volume, but you can't do volume. It's just, you got to decide. Like at our firm, we have a pre-lit department. We have volume, not like a lot, but I mean, we probably do 25 cases a month in the pre-lit, but we have multiple lawyers over there. That's all they do. We're not asking them to be trial lawyers. We're asking them to be pre-lit lawyers, and they do a phenomenal job. But if you want to be a trial lawyer getting big results, you have to work on less cases.
Makes sense, because it takes a lot of freaking work to put these cases together. It's insane.
A lot. And it's not just time. I mean, emotionally, physically, I mean, the anxiety waiting for a verdict is awful, as we all know. It's like, I don't know if there's a worse time for anybody doing a professional job than that, because you're being judged. Your work product's being judged by that jury, and all you're doing in the interim is second guessing everything you did. So, and then the worst part is, at least for me, the verdict comes out, and I'm like, okay.
It's probably more of a relief than it is excitement. It's like, when you're young, it's exciting. Like I used to win criminal cases, I'd be so excited, but after a while, I was like, fuck, escaped again. Escaped with that person's life again. Jeez, thank God.
Yeah, it is very interesting you say that, because I had lunch with June and Will and Matt at the office the other day, and on Monday, to celebrate the verdict. The 4 of us went out and grabbed some Mexican food and had a couple beers. But what was interesting is we were thinking back to my first 8-figure verdict, which was against Lowe's 8 years ago. And that verdict, after that verdict happened, everybody from the whole firm came to my house and we had a rager. I mean, it was this party that, I mean, we were listening to 2 Chainz, and we were like, you know, we were going crazy, just partying our asses off all night, having a great time, celebrating the victory. Like, man, we are the kings of the world. What's up? And, you know, fast forward 8 years later, we have a verdict that's $10 million more than that. And it's like, yep, that's right.
Next.
Yeah, next.
It's like it's endless. It's the endless game that you're playing. But Sean, the reality is you had this great success these days, and your firm has this great success. But you know, it wasn't always that way. You know, I mean, you had challenges of a younger lawyer that everybody had. So just kind of, I don't think a lot of people know, because I actually didn't know. Like, you know, give us your backstory when you got started being a lawyer. You know, where, you know, you got your bar card. You know, it's exciting to get a bar card. We all think we accomplished something, and then we realize we don't know shit when we get to the real world. That, you know, and we don't know how to practice law. We don't know how to make money, and those are skills that are 2 separate skills. So tell us about your beginnings and how you kind of got to where you're at.
Yeah, so well, in law school, I did well in law school, right? I was on moot court. I won the inter-school moot court competition, which was a big accomplishment in law school. I was on law review as a staff editor. I was top 10 in the class in grade. So I really excelled and took law school. It was the first time in my entire life that I took school seriously, because I really didn't. It was just easy before, and I was playing college baseball, and it was kind of just going through the motions and getting good grades because it was easy, but I didn't care. It's not like I was competing on the baseball field, not in the classroom. In law school, I competed in a classroom. I really tried hard in law school. So my first job is I was working for an insurance defense firm as a law clerk after my first year, all the way through my second year. And I hated it. And I was like, okay, I know one thing. I will never practice law if this is what it's like. I'll go back into banking, go back and work for Wells Fargo or Chase or somebody, but I'm not doing this. And so I then had an opportunity. I interviewed with the highest paying firm in the state, a very stuffy commercial litigation firm. And I went to the interview, and because I was academically doing very well in school, they wanted to give me a chance for that coveted internship between second and third year that leads to a job that leads to $100,000 a year salary back then. I think it was like 105. It was nuts, like how much they were paying. Nuts. I mean, we're talking, this is 22 years ago, 23 years ago. So imagine making $105,000 23 years ago. It was a lot of money. And I go for the interview, and it was like, I walked in, I'm like, there's no fucking way I could do this. There's no way that I could suit and tie it up every day and be in a stuffy environment with these stuffy people. I just wasn't who I was. And so my wife, who was real excited that I got this opportunity for this job, the interviewer's question was, what makes you a good fit for this firm? And my answer back was like, I'm so sorry, I won't be a good fit. This isn't for me, and I'm sorry I wasted your time. I didn't know what this was going to feel like, but I'm not feeling it. And so I left, went right back to the law school, and I was looking for other opportunities because I had to get out of the job I was in because I hated it. And I saw an opportunity for a 1-week job with Dominic Gentile, who was and is one of the great criminal defense attorneys maybe ever in the United States. He had a job, and I went and interviewed. He goes, when you can start? I'm like, tomorrow. And he goes, all right. You know, it was an interview on Friday. I was going to start Monday. I went back to my office that I was working at, packed my stuff up, was walking out, and the managing partner was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I quit. She goes, you're not giving notice? I'm like, nope. She goes, you're burning bridges. I'm like, I'm never coming back over this bridge. Promise. Never coming. And so I left, and I went for a week with Dominic, did a really good job there. And
Wait, what kind of job only lasts a week, though? I mean,
it
was it a trial or something?
At the time, a bunch of the county commissioners had been indicted here, true Vegas style. And Dominic had one of the county commissioners, and there was a lot of FBI tapes that they had recorded, and we had to listen to them and make notes about where on the tapes they were. And so my job was for a week straight to listen to these tapes.
The wiretaps.
Wiretaps, yeah.
Wow. It's like, I used to be a criminal defense lawyer. I used to come to Vegas all the time for different conferences. So I remember and name Dominic Gentile is kind of a cool name. And so I just remember coming out. I don't remember the guy, but just remember coming to conferences where he was speaking for the NACDL.
Yeah, he's so smart on evidence. It's unbelievable. And so I do that. And then he had another attorney who had his own firm, Michael Cristalli, who subleased space from him. And Michael needed a law clerk. And so Dominic said I did a good job to Michael. Michael gave me an interview and hired me. And Michael became, like, it was the coolest job. I mean, as a young attorney, when you think about like the coolest job you could ever have as a young law clerk / lawyer, working for Michael Cristalli and tangentially Dominic Gentile in the same building, the who's who you'd never know who was walking through the door any given day, like big names walking in the door. And it was, and then, we had the opportunity with Michael to do the Sandy Murphy retrial of the Binion murder trial, which at the time was on the heels of OJ, probably the biggest trial in the United States. And Michael originally, so it was, here's some names for you. Just, I don't think you know this, but I'm over there and Alan Dershowitz does the appeal. So our client, Sandy Murphy, was convicted. Alan Dershowitz does the appeal, gets the conviction overturned. We get a retrial. Lead counsel for Sandy Murphy at the beginning was Dick DeGuerin.
Dick DeGuerin represented that crazy guy with those tapes that admitted to this stuff.
Yeah.
And that guy is like a legendary criminal defense lawyer. Who did you just represent recently? Somebody that was guilty as hell, but
Robert Durst.
But that was, yeah. He did good the first time around.
He got him acquitted. He got Robert Durst acquitted the first time when the body was chopped up in his freezer.
I know. That's a hell of a fucking job. Second time, I think it was a little tougher. This confession in the bathroom.
Yeah, it was
on TV, on the show. I was like, wow. The Jinx, that's what it's called.
So then the co-defendant his attorney was Tony Serra. Tony Serra is a legendary criminal defense attorney out of San Francisco who was basically a civil rights legend representing the Black Panther. I mean, these, like, as a young attorney, I am just like, this was so amazing. Like, the legends of the legal world were all here. And then Dick DeGuerin, I don't know what happened. I was a first year attorney. I'm certainly not in any conversations of any substance, but Dick DeGuerin leaves the team and Michael becomes lead counsel, Michael Cristalli. And Michael Cristalli takes that, and I'm there with Gary Modafferi, who's a brilliant attorney who's still in Vegas and a dear friend of mine. He was there writing a bunch of the briefs and dealing with a lot of the evidentiary issues, and we got her. She was acquitted, and so then on the heels of that trial, Michael decided that Michael had a very small civil calendar or civil docket that he had. He had a few cases here and there, and one of the cases he decided to take was a patent infringement lawsuit against 3M because his brother-in-law distributed this product that 3M had infringed on. So Michael takes the case. I'm like, well, do you know anything about patent law, Mike? He's like, no. I'm like, he goes, but you'll learn. I'm like, oh. And so I find myself doing my first civil jury trial in federal court against 3M. And I was certain we were going to lose because we didn't know what we were doing.
But this was your first jury trial ever, not just civil. You had no criminal trial experience, did you?
No, I mean, I'd done trials with Michael, as second chair or what have you, but not as lead counsel.
It's a little different when you're the lead. So I
Very,
heard.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, and again, like we talked yesterday, I mean, I'd done a lot of like doing criminal defense is great because you're in court every single day. You're doing arraignments, you're doing sentencings, you're doing preliminary hearings, which is like miniature bench trials, right? I mean, what's the old saying that you can bind up a ham sandwich? It's slight marginal evidence to bind up.
It was always the at a grand jury. The grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. That's what because like just whatever you do, it's like, all right, great. there's no contradiction, so it's not too tough.
Yeah, so we everything gets bound up, but once in a while you get rid of some charges at the preliminary hearing, but no, so we did that, and then we do this 3M trial, which was just awesome, and it's a great story about negotiating. Is the attorney for 3M was this guy named Ed Schwarz. And Ed Schwarz was based out of Pasadena, but he was from Massachusetts. And he had a thick Boston accent, right? And Ed really knew patent law. Ed did not know trial law, meaning he was not a very good trial lawyer, but he was really smart when it came to patent law. And so we show up, and I've got my client there. My client's like, look, just settle whatever you can get. Like, offer to settle for $50,000. So I go to Ed that morning. We're getting ready to start trial. I'm like, hey, Ed, we're willing to take $50,000 to settle. What do you think? And he goes, go fuck yourself. I'm like, is that the counter? Is that the? And he just is looking at me like I'm an irritating gnat in his world, And so I go back to my client. He goes, well, what'd they say? I'm like, well, they said to go fuck ourselves. And he goes, my client was a French Canadian guy. He's like, so what does that mean? I'm like, well, it means we're going to go do this trial. So we're in the trial, and Ed had engaged. He was very nice gentleman. He offered to make the exhibit binders for us. Isn't that nice? That was so nice. And I have my own set of documents because I printed out what the exhibits were. Ed had decided it would be really helpful to alter the emails that were going back and forth to make it appear as if the emails said things that they didn't actually say. He thought that would be helpful. And so I'm examining. Yeah, because they're suing my client for defamation because my client has gone publicly and said that they stole his idea. And
what was the idea, though?
So the product was the military was having problems with when bomb blasts would happen, glass shrapnel would blow out, and that would be what was hurting people. And so my client Paul came up with this idea. He's like, hey, I can put a film on the window and then an adhesive L bracket that attaches to the frame of the window and the window itself. And so you can have bombs explode outside and the glass won't explode. It will stay in one piece. So if the bomb blast is strong enough, it'll blow out the whole window frame in one piece. But you're never going to get through the film. The film's that strong. It was awesome. So that was the product. And so he had tested it at Quantico he'd done a lot of work on it. And 3M basically took it and just liked the idea because they knew it was valuable, and it had a lot of other applications for storefront security. So for smash and grabs and stuff like that. Ultimately, during the testimony of Paul, I was asking questions about the emails, and he's looking at the evidence binder that's in front of him. He's like, I don't see what you're talking about. I asked to approach. I'm like, well, what the heck? And I'm like, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar? So we go in the federal court. There's a big sidebar. The judge was Judge Hunt, very conservative judge. And I go, Your Honor, they've altered the evidence in this case. And he goes, you can tell the judge manager, he goes, I'll tell you what, the jury's going to go out. You guys figure this out. And so the jury leaves, and Ed's like, oh, I'm so sorry. That wasn't the intent. We just tried to make it. Let's just go ahead and use yours. I'm like, yeah, fuck you, Ed. Go fuck yourself. He goes, you're not willing to work with me? I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think that this was really bad. I know I'm young and I know I don't know as much as you, but I feel like you did this intentionally with the intent to take advantage of a young lawyer and to benefit your client in a way that is unethical. And he goes, I'm going to get the judge. I'm like, well, yeah, I think you should. I think we should talk about this on the record because this is terrible what you did. And so he gets the judge and he basically says, Your Honor, he's not willing to work with us. And the judge looks at him and goes, I wouldn't either. Your counterclaim is dismissed with prejudice. All of those exhibits are struck from the record. And we went on and we got that set the stage for the jury found a patent infringement that was willful. So they awarded $1.3 million and gave treble damages. So it was like, what, 5.2 or something like that?
That's good math on your part, buddy. You're good
Yeah.
with those numbers, those multiples.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
A good start is what it was a good start.
Good start.
Good start, but then from that great start, tell us about the rosy path you got to walk to your being, a consistent 8-figure guy.
Well, so I then, on the heels of the Sandy Murphy trial and the civil verdict, I was still only making like $55,000 a year. And, my Christmas bonus that year was like $200, $250. And so I made the decision, I'm going to go start my own firm. And so that was like the Christmas of 2004. And then I made the decision starting January 2005, I'm going to start my own firm. And so start my own firm. And
what did you come up with? Some clever name?
Yeah, Sean K. Claggett and Associates.
Wow. How many associates did you have? A part-time paralegal?
Yeah, I had a paralegal, so that was my associate.
Hi.
I had other associates, I'm sure, that were fine people. They didn't work for me, but no. So yeah, it was just a paralegal and I, and so we started, and the first year in 2005, we did really well, but we were doing a hodgepodge of different things. I was doing credit repair, bankruptcy, criminal defense, civil litigation. What if you had $1,000? I was your guy.
I know the feeling. Hell yeah, you're the guy. Are you kidding me? Traffic tickets, $200, whatever you got.
100%. So my goal was I wanted to make $20,000 a month every month minimum. I said if I can make $20,000 a month, I can take home $100,000 at the end of the year. After I pay all my overhead, pay my paralegal, if I make $240,000 gross, I can make $100 for me, which was like almost doubling my salary from where I was at. And I did. Every single month that year, I made over $20,000. And then in July of that year, I made $468,000.
How'd that happen?
So, I had 3 civil cases that. So I never liked billing, like the civil cases. I was really fond of doing contingency work on. So you got to remember in 2005, the real estate market was just going through the roof, and so everybody had a ton of equity. So I could take a dispute between 2 homeowners, 2 businesses, whatever, and prevail and go rip 30%, 40% of the equity off the deal as the attorney fee. And so that's what I did. And we ended up settling one case for like 1.3 million. So I made like $400,000 on that case. And then I had 2 other cases that settled and ended up making 468. And so that 2005 was great. And then I thought, wow, this is easy. And then 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 10, 11, and by 2010, now what happened by 2008, the real estate market had crashed. And so all of my retainer clients were gone. I was making, $15,000, $20,000 a month, like clockwork from 4 or 5 commercial, like developers, subcontractors type of thing. That all went away overnight. Everything just collapsed. With my ability to make money, which is why I started doing personal injury, except for two things I didn't realize when I said I was going to do personal injury starting in 2008. A, it's going to take time to build up the practice, and B, it's going to cost me a lot of money to build it up. And those are two things I didn't really have a lot of at that time, which was I didn't have a lot of money at that time, and I certainly didn't feel like I had a lot of time. And so uh, it was a real struggle. In fact, we had another business. My wife and I owned a Denny's restaurant, and that Denny's restaurant for 3 years would make the payroll of the law firm every 2 weeks. So the firm would make one payroll, the Denny's would pay the other money to make the payroll. That's how I got my firm to survive for 3 years during the economic downturn of 08, 09 to 2010.
When did Will Sykes join you?
Will joined the firm. So I met Will in law school. He was a 1L when I was a 3L. So Will graduated in 05 and then did 2 years at the Supreme Court as a clerk for Justice Douglas. So that would put 07. So I think Will started with me probably in 08, beginning of 08.
Was he a lawyer number 2 at Claggett?
Yeah,
Was he associate number 1 at Claggett Associates?
Will was associate number 1, and what are we at now? 16 years later, he was associate number 1, partner number 1, greatest dude. We get along really, really well. So,
It's how many lawyers at your firm now?
well, if you count all of them between the East Coast and West Coast, I think we have like 36.
It's good growth there.
Or 33 with 3 law clerks that are waiting for bar results. So I'm hoping to be 36 come October. They're probably hoping more than me.
Yeah, you think? You think? And in a minute after but I do want to talk to you about those three law students, like what you're gonna advice you give them to become lawyers. I assume these 3 law students that are with you want to become trial lawyers. This is why they're, at least in their minds right now they do. They may not want to once they realize how hard it is, but.
Well, they all have really unique traits. But I kind of look at that group as kind of the future of the firm. As we've got those 3 and we've got 2 more law clerks that we had a law clerk this summer that worked for us, which was he's a stud, man. I'm hoping he agrees to come back and work for us. His dad's a lawyer who his dad and I worked on that Acadia case and got that verdict last summer together. So that's so I'm hoping that his son agrees to come back and work for us. He's a super kid, super smart. And then we have another kid that's looks like he's going to be really good too. So, it's important to think about the future of the firm because all of these great attorneys that I started the firm with, we're all aging into 50s and 60s now.
Oh, what are you, 48, Sean? 47?
Yeah, before
you got to really start worrying about the end, buddy, at that age.
Well, you better have a plan because it seemed like yesterday I was 32 and now I'm almost 50 and it happened pretty quick. And so, you definitely have to have a plan. You have to have a succession plan. I think a lot of firms end up dying and get top heavy and don't function well because the owners don't give their equity to the younger, hungrier, harder working folks. They probably deserve it more than you. So I'm fascinated by the success and failure of law firms. And one thing that I constantly see is that failure happens when the partners age up and they don't make younger attorneys equity and don't infuse new blood. At some point, you gotta turn it over.
Well, before we get to that point, though, because you're still actively practicing, I think right now.
I've got a solid decade left, I think.
Great. Then you'll have a legacy. Then you can start worrying about your legacy. Right now, we got a lot of work to do. But what I was going to ask you, though, is that you were talking about this journey here, and we haven't quite got to, because I know there were some hard times before things started rolling.
Yeah. Well, really hard times. We were by the beginning of 2012, we were out of money. We were really it was really hard times, you know, and it's, as a business owner, you're sitting there, and my wife had started doing the books of the firm a few years before. And so she was well aware of the financial peril that it wasn't, you know, it's when you're the business owner, it's not just the firm, it's you personally. I mean, everything's going to fall apart. And we had maxed out by March of 2012. We had maxed out every credit card, our equity line of credit on our house, our, I borrowed every dime I could from my 401k. I didn't have I didn't have $500 in my personal accounts. I didn't have any money in the business accounts. We had a $250,000 line of credit that was maxed out at the firm. I mean, we were out of money. Out. I couldn't pay experts. It was so awful. I had experts sending me bills. I'm like, I don't have the money to pay you. And I couldn't tell them that because they don't want to hear that the lawyer doesn't have money to pay them because then they'll stop working. I would just be like, yeah, no, I'm getting to it. I promise I'm getting to it. It was just, that went on for like a year. It was terrible. And I remember it was a Thursday night, and it was NBC sitcoms back then. I think it was like 30
Cheers.
Rock. No, like 30.
Seinfeld.
No. This
You're like Ambrose. You're way older than me. This is a different generation.
This was like Parks and Recreation, 30 Rock. Yeah. It was their Thursday night lineup back then. And all I want to do is that I know the following Friday I got to make payroll, and there's no money. We are out. We are out of money. There's nothing I can do. And my wife wants me to reassure her that we have money, that something's coming in the door. And I by this point in time, I'd already furloughed everybody at the firm. Everybody was already taking every other Friday off and taking 90% pay. So everybody had taken a 10% pay cut to stay at the firm. And I finally just looked at her. I go, you know what? There's nothing. We are going to have to file bankruptcy. I don't have a solution. There's no money coming in. And it was one of those conversations where I couldn't sleep. I was just sick to my stomach. It was awful. I mean, it was awful. The financial stress that we were under was immense. Well, on Tuesday, you know, I believe that God has a plan for everybody. And on Tuesday, that next week, there was a case that I had tried to settle for the policy of a good friend of mine who had gotten T-boned by a girl and driving daddy's car. And, you know, they had a $1.25 million, they had a $250 underlying and $1 million umbrella, and they wouldn't settle. So I sent my investigator out as a Hail Mary, and we photographed this guy's, all of his like RV, boat, UTVs, like all of his toys. And we I drafted the complaint, filed the complaint, and sent a letter to him saying, hey, and by the way, he sold policies for the insurance company that wouldn't pay. I said, let your carrier know that we're coming after you for everything you've ever earned because of what your daughter did to my client. We offered to settle for your policy limits and they didn't pay us. Here's all the assets that we know you have, and here's some pictures that my investigator's taken of your assets at your home. Don't sell any of them. Don't transfer them. Don't encumber. Don't otherwise dispose of any of them, because it will be a fraudulent transfer. Well, so that was done like 2 weeks before. Well, on Tuesday, I get a letter from the carrier with a release and a check for $1.25 million saying, if you will agree to settle the case, here's the money and the release. So I call my buddy up and I'm like, yo, you need to come down here right now. I settled your case for 1.25. He's like, what? No way. I'm like, yeah, dude, come down here. Well, he comes down and signs everything, and I'm crying. Like, I broke down. I was crying. Just all the stress was like, it was a miracle from God that this had happened, because I had no answer. I had no control of what was happening. And all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, dude, all my problems are solved. And so I was like, man, that's crazy. And so, but then I had a problem. When you have a whole bunch of debt and no money in the bank, they put like a 2-week hold on checks. And so I thank God I used to work at Wells Fargo. So I went to my buddy who's a branch manager and I was like, yo, Jason, I need you to clear this check. And he's like, yeah, that's above my limit. So we got the president of Wells Fargo, Nevada, and he cleared the check for me that day. He overrode the system and made payroll on Friday, paid off all my credit cards, paid down my line of credit on my house, basically spent all that money and paid off all the debt. So at least I didn't have debt. I didn't have much left over afterwards, but I didn't have debt. And then as fate would have it, there was a case I had that was at the Supreme Court that came down. And mind you, that was my first $1 million PI settlement.
And that was your first settlement for 7 figures in
Yeah.
what, 7 years or so? There was a little bit of a gap between we thought it was going to be easy, and then
Yeah.
it actually got a little
And
easier.
the 05 one was a real estate deal. So, but for personal injury, this was the first time I'd gotten $1 million settlement. And so that occurred. And then 2 weeks later, the Supreme Court came down on a case that we had in our favor, and they paid us another 1.25. And then 2 weeks after that, I settled a case for $800,000. And so all of a sudden I went from like, I have no money to having $1 million. And then that allowed me to fund the firm and be in a position. And then I had a big products case that I'd been working on that I couldn't pay any of my experts on, that ultimately settled the following year for $7 million. And then that kind of was
the beginning of the roll. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the roll hasn't stopped since April of 2012.
No, and you're on quite a roll now because you have how many verdicts in a row that have 8 digits in them?
8 or 9 is 8 figures and 9 figures. I have 8 in a row.
That's pretty solid. Now, if you only take 8 and 9 figure cases, though, I mean, that might have something to do with it, according to the data.
Case selection matters for sure.
Yes, it matters more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying 7-figure cases anymore, right? We have other attorneys in the firm that are working on those cases.
Yep.
And then we have our younger attorneys working on the 5- and 6-figure cases. And
you got the 5 and 6 people looking to become 6 and 7 people, the 6 and 7 people looking to become 7 and 8 people, 7 and 8 people. I get it. There's a stepping process here. There's a stepping and coaching process here. Let me ask you, we got this big event coming up here, October 16th through 19th. I think it's like 57 days away. I have it on my wall. I keep the number of days on the wall, and actually I keep the date and the number of people registered on the wall because these are very important things. This clock that's ticking. It's like me and Kamala, we're on short time frames to get to where we need to go. I feel like I feel like we have something together. We're neck and neck together now. But you've been with us. I mean, you and I go back a long ways. I remember when I wasn't always your favorite person. It's hard to believe that those days existed, but those days did exist. But they're not here anymore, and we're doing Vegas at Caesar's Palace. This will be our 3rd time we've done Vegas, but the first time in Vegas where the Claggett and Sykes Trial College have their own track, and you just did this track in Huntington Beach, and it was it was extremely well received. As I called a lot of folks afterwards, say, hey, what'd you listen to? And a lot of people were like, oh man, that Claggett, that shit was great. I finally figured out how to do stuff and how to put these cases together and building of the cases. And so tell us, in Vegas this year, what is it that you guys are going to be teaching? Why do people really, the question is, Sean, there's a lot of things to see this year, a lot of things to do. And of all these things that people have to see and do, because I look at these conferences and I try to plan it because we all got gaps. We all got insecurities. People come to conferences. People think they know everything. They think they're the greatest thing since sliced fucking bread. They don't show up to conferences, unless they're speaking, because there'd be no other possible reason for them to come. There'd be nothing to learn because they know everything. And so, but for those people like me and some other of us out there that have insecurities and gaps in our knowledge, I think people go to the class or the workshop where they feel they have the gap that they need to fill. So the question is, what gaps in our knowledge and what is it that people can learn from what your team and the people you put together on your track will be teaching?
Yeah, so I think it's important for everybody to kind of know, like, with my background being in bank, I come from a banking background before going to law school. I was very involved at Wells Fargo in retail and then private banking.
Like getting people to sign up for checking accounts?
That's
No,
the retail end of it.
I'm just messing. That's
That's
just a
actually
joke.
retail. That is retail. Yeah. So on the retail end, you're doing basic, checking, savings, credit cards, uh, money market rates. So you would have some base level knowledge of low risk investments. But then in private banking, it's a totally different world, and you're doing much more complex underwriting and decision making with more relationship based decision making and looking at different factors. So I done all kinds of lending as part of my banking, well, just a lot of stuff. So I have a very good understanding of business. I teach law. I have taught law practice management for the past like 12 or 13 years at the law school. And Matt Granda teaches law practice management at the law school now. So kind of what we thought from what made sense from the way we perceive what we do is to create a trial school that integrates the business of what we do with the techniques and strategies that we employ to be successful as a personal injury trial firm. But not only a trial firm, but also, why is our pre-lit department so successful? And they are insanely successful. So we kind of take it from those angles, like overall business operations. Then we have pre-lit, so everything from intake to verdict and appeal and post-verdict negotiation. So all and everything in between. So depositions, filing of the complaint, discovery disputes, 30B6 drafting of topics and being prepared for that. The obviously big data, we call it JuryBall data now. Using your JuryBall data to drive decision making earlier in the case and also at trial. And so we're going to talk a lot about JuryBall, which is, as most people know now, our book is out. It's been very well received. Yes.
I keep my copy right here with me all the time and read every morning to properly inspire and wire my brain.
Good. It's a great book. I do think that if you haven't read it and you don't have it, you should get it and read it and understand it, because if you understand how JuryBall data and data in general can empower you as a trial lawyer, it's really something. So we're going to talk a lot about that, and then really we'll talk about our work days and what it means to properly prepare, and then how is it that we put together our stories that we tell at trial, and then obviously there's behaviors of successful people that are shared in our industry, right? And you see very similar behavior patterns from successful lawyers. They may do it differently. Everybody has their own take on things, but there's very similar behavior traits that are shared, I think, with successful folks. And our goal is to try to share that and kind of show everybody the intersection of business with being a trial lawyer, and then how those two things work together. So I think that when you attend our college course, our trial college, when you leave, I think your firm will be better operating. You have better systems in place. We have all kinds of checklists that we use in our firm. And we need people to get it done. And the better you get like with our work days, we have these worksheets. The better you fill those out, the more prepared you're going to be. The more prepared you are, the more success you're going to have. And the more honest you can be about your strengths and weaknesses of your case. And so we talk about a lot of that.
And then besides the 3-day lecture track, though, you are going to have some workshops.
Yeah, we're really excited. June Hong, who is a consultant with Sari de la Motte. I will say that Sari invited us to her house during trial because we were up in Portland and she lives up there. So we had a lovely dinner with Sari uh, and Kevin, her husband, and June and Jody and the rest of many other people on Sari's team. It was really cool. It was a by the way, Kevin, Sari's husband, is an amazing chef and made this home cooked meal for us that was to die for. And it was a really nice conversation. And
Did you get her fired up about Vegas though? Because she hasn't been
I
to
think so.
TLU before.
I'm excited to hang out with Sari. Sari's just such a dynamo, right? And I really think that Sari can work with you and get you to be the best version of you and get you to really believe in what you're doing. And a lot of what we see with, when we're working with people in data is we can show them, and we can show them everything. But if they don't believe in it, it won't matter, because you'll revert back to different decision making in the heat of the moment. Because when the chips are on the table, if you're not believing in the process, then you'll make a different decision because you'll trust your gut. And I think one of the cool things that I've been talking to June about, we've talked to Sari about, is, man, can you imagine getting a big data report and then going and working with a coach like Sari, or June or Jody or Kevin, and having them work with you to be able to present whatever your story you're telling in the best way that you can with your individual charisma. And that's kind of what I think is I'm excited to see that happen, actually. And I think we will see that. And it helps that June he's a partner at our firm and runs the New York office, and is also a consultant for Sari, because June's taught me a ton about Sari's methodology and what she does. And so I've learned a lot in this last year because of June and his relationship with Sari.
So he's going to do some workshops.
Yeah, so June's going to do some workshops. We were talking. June's staying in my house right now, and he was saying that he talked to you about doing a workshop.
Yep.
In addition,
we're going to put him to work. I told him, man, you got to go to work, June. This is not the hangout time for you at Vegas. This is going to be work. Now you're part of Claggett.
Like he's going to be working. And then I know Jordan's going to be doing a workshop on storytelling and PowerPoint, which I'll tell anybody, you're absolutely out of your mind if you don't sign up and take Jordan's class, because there is nobody in America, nobody, that's a better storyteller and then with the knowledge and ability to tell a story using PowerPoint the way that Jordan Logan does. He's a great storyteller by himself, but he's mastered the art of using effective PowerPoint. He's coined the term edutainment, that our openings are educational and entertaining. Edutainment.
I coined the term infotainment, so I hope he's not going to try to take credit for that too.
I don't know what infotainment is.
I don't have a copyright.
It sounds like you're going to sell a vacuum, but
okay. You say so. So we got all these great things to learn there at TLU Vegas, your track, and then so many other great trial lawyers coming, like your buddies Nick Rowley and Brian Panish and Rex Paris and like Joe Freed and Satch Oliver and Randy McGinn, and we got so many great besides Sari de la Motte. Jesse Wilson's coming. I don't know if you ever met him before, but he does the witness prep, victim to victor approach. David Ball is going to chime in via Zoom, of course, because he doesn't travel. And Harry Plotkin.
Rowley. So that's part of our track, I believe, is Rowley, Ball, and I are going to be on the same stage at the same time talking about how to overcome the nuclear verdict book, like the techniques taught in that book. We're writing a book about it right now. David Ball and I, over COVID, as you recall, did really cool presentations on this, where David and I were, during COVID, you had nothing to do. So David and I were talking, and we read the book, and it was kind of interesting because it was the first book written by a defense lawyer for defense lawyers. And so we went through it and systematically ripped it apart, and we're going to take that and put it into a book. But Nick Rowley, David Ball, and I are going to present together on the same stage to talk about kind of what we've done before and what we're putting in book format. So it's very exciting. Nick's a dear friend, and Nick and I have a great time chatting about our cases and strategies, and we always laughed because every time we're together, we both learn something new, and we get a little bit better incrementally. And so that's the name of the game, right? You learn a little bit each time.
Get one new skill, practice the skill,
Yep.
own it, then get another new skill. And that's how you become a great trial lawyer.
Yeah.
One new skill at a time.
That's right. That's 100%. I think I've been saying that for years, and
No.
it's very true.
Very true. Very true. And that'd be on October 16th. There's a lot going on that day now. And so we got what's going on at Valley High.
Yeah, so we've got our golf tournament, our second annual Claggett and Sykes golf tournament, which is very exciting. There's 144 spots that were open. I think we're down to like maybe 70 now already. It's filling up quickly, but essentially it's it's a really cool event. It's at Valley High. It's totally complimentary. It's an event that the firm puts on, and the cool part about it is the vendors that are out there that are sponsoring the event. They're vendors I actually do business with. So when people go out there and they want to know who does Claggett and Sykes do business with, you go out there and you will get to meet the vendors that have allowed us to be successful.
I know Digital Law Marketing is one of those.
Yeah.
Mike Edwards.
Yeah, we have
hell of a guy.
Nick Cochimilio, with
Justice for Life.
Justice for Life and Independent Life are going to be out there, and
Courtney Barber,
yeah. Advocate Capital, Bank of Nevada, which is these are partners that really, really make a difference for us. And so that's the cool part when you come out there. And then the other cool part is it's fun, man. It is a lot of fun, and the weather's typically beautiful.
Perfect.
It's mid-October Vegas weather, which is like usually the primo time of the year to be golfing. And
I was just golfing 2 weeks ago. It was 114 degrees out at 4 in the afternoon.
Not ideal. July and August golf in Vegas, not ideal.
You'd be surprised. I was out there by myself.
It's not shocking. At those temperatures, we've had some heat that will cause the glue on your grips to melt. So that's Wednesday. That's going to kick off the conference, and then that night after the golf, we will have like liquid IV and IV stations, I think, out there to help people survive the early start and early drinking at the golf tournament.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. But besides your golf tournament, though, Nick is going to take some people out and do some hiking, and that might have, and he's leaning towards doing, because we were going to go to Red Rock Canyon, but apparently they got all this red tape with this being a national park. So might do something over by your parents' house. That's what I hear is going on. I got to talk to him.
Oh yeah, well listen, I will if that's the choice. My mom is an avid hiker, and she will. There's a great hike up at Cathedral Rock, up at Mount Charleston, where you could and I could. My mom and dad have a cabin, a beautiful little cabin up there with a huge park-like atmosphere, and it would be wonderful to have some folks go up there and have a nice picnic up there for everybody.
I think it's
really beautiful. And my parents would be so excited. They would think it's the greatest thing in the world.
I think it's probably going to happen there. And then, Kurt Zahner from Denver, he's like, we're all in Claggett. I got to do something too. He's going to take like 25 people out to the desert and ride ATVs and go out to lunch and do something different. And then there's education that day because Michael Cowan from San Antonio, he's doing a big rig masterclass that day. And then Ben Rabinowitz from New York and Mike Kelly from San Francisco are doing a expert witness cross-examination masterclass that day because Ben taught that out in New York and it was like wildly received. And those two guys are good buddies. And so they're going to do that. So that way, if people want to learn a little bit, they can. If they want to go have some fun with different folks, they can. Or if they don't want to do any of the above, they don't have to. Because then I'm not sure yet, but I think my buddy Sagi is going to get a cabana, like from like 1 to 5 at Caesars. Whoever gets there early wants to hang out at the pool, have a cocktail. So we're going to get people properly primed for the opening registration party that, of course, you're co-hosting with your buddy Rowley. And so it's going to be a great start to a phenomenal program because, we all have 57 days to make it fucking awesome. That's all I can say. And every day will be utilized.
We keep inviting more people to the conference. So I think.
And then you got your thing on September 6th with all the law students, because my goal is to have 100 law students this year. So if any law students want to come to Trial Lawyers University, if you send Noelle at Trial Lawyers University an email telling her why you want to come and what to Trial Lawyers University and why you want to be a plaintiff's lawyer, great shot. You'll get a pass, a scholarship to come.
Well, we can certainly get some local UNLV talent.
That'd be great. That'd be great for so many reasons because it's so important. Could you imagine like coming to a conference like this when you were in law school, to actually get Clue, to get just all these great lawyers there and all these, and because they're all such great people too. I mean, 99% of the plaintiffs' lawyers are great people.
It's a very different world today, and I think you're going to see more and more young lawyers being very successful earlier in their careers because of the education that's available to them that was not available to us as young lawyers.
I couldn't agree with you more because I always tell people it's the greatest time to be a trial lawyer, to become a trial lawyer, because if you're not great, if you don't make it to the top, it's because you chose not to. Not because the information wasn't available, but you just chose it wasn't a priority. You didn't want to do the work. And that's totally understandable because it's a lot of work. But at least it's not frustrating because so many people before I think wanted to get there, wanted to do the work. And I kind of look at, like the Trial Lawyers College. It's a 3-week program, but it doesn't have a lot to do with trial lawyering. And people go there and spend 3 weeks and they think they're becoming great trial lawyers and they come back out and a lot of times it gets shellacked and they can't understand it. And it becomes very frustrating because they're not working on the right stuff. I mean, it's good to be a good person, but you still got to work on the skills of trial. I mean, it's a skill.
Well, I've really reflected a lot on different, when you look at different organizations that have been great and you look at attorneys that are successful, and many of the top attorneys have their origins. And when I'm talking over the last 20 years, if you look at the great trial lawyers that kind of are out there, many of them had their origins at the Trial Lawyer College or the Reptile, kind of these two different schools of thought. But for everyone that's successful, you probably have 2 or 3 that aren't very successful. And why is that? And I've noticed when I was in the Reptile world, the faculty lost more trials than they won, for sure. It wasn't even close. And so their win rate was way under 50%. And well, if the system worked that well, why is everybody losing so much? That doesn't make any sense. Same with TLC. Why do so many of the lawyers that go to TLC lose so much? And you can go to program to program to program, and historically the win rate's not that great. And what's crazy is the lawyers that are going to these programs are the lawyers who are really trying to get better.
Right. Really not the lazy lawyers.
Right. I mean, so you're talking about this is the top 5% of lawyers that are going to these that are still losing. Winning at trial is not easy, right? It's hard. It's freaking hard. But then I look at the data since we've done JuryBall. Well, the win rate's like over 95%. It's very rare that anybody that goes to trial that has the data loses. Very rare. It can happen. statistically we know it's going to happen. But it happens at such a much lower rate than anything that's ever happened before. What we're learning is all those skill sets you learn from all these different places is great. Case selection matters a ton. And that's the thing, is what happens with a lot of these other courses you take is like, I'm great. I'm a great person. I believe that this is going to work out. Well, what we believe doesn't matter.
Their gut. I got a gut instinct.
Yeah. Don't trust the gut when you can trust data, And so all those skill sets are amazing. But then when you take those skill sets and you apply it to the right case, and those lawyers that are really successful, what they figured out is that they try the right cases. They're trying the right cases. And that's the difference. And so I have friends that are great trial lawyers that try the wrong cases over and over and over again. They keep losing and they think they're not good trial lawyers. I'm like, did you run a data study on it? No. Okay. You run a data study on it? Yeah. What was your win rate? 48%. And you lost? Yeah. Well, the data told you were going to lose. You knew you were going to lose before you went in. You did it anyways. And so I think
that's the definition of insanity.
It's not wise.
It's not good for business.
It's not good for your emotions either.
No, right.
Losing hurts.
Yeah, that's one thing that you see some of these young lawyers get thrown into these gauntlets of trial, even little trial, $10,000 trial. Who cares? Going and working hard on something for 3 or 4 days and getting shellacked publicly. It's brutal on your self-image. And that happens 2-3 times in a row. Forget about that person. They're pretty much toast. Not many people recover from multiple losses. I mean, I had 10 losses in a row at one point, and when I actually got an acquittal, I started crying, and I was just so relieved that maybe it wasn't my destiny to be a loser. But I'm trying DUI case. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're trying, because when you're trying it, you totally believe, because you have to. You're totally bought in. And so when you get punched in the face repeatedly, most lawyers don't recover from 3 losses in a row, I'd say. And that's why it's so important, even at young, even small cases, that they're well prepared and you got a good shot to win. So if you don't win, at least you didn't get embarrassed. I mean, at least you were in the game. It wasn't like people are looking at you like, what the fuck is this guy doing in the courtroom?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely, big case selection matters. So all too often the business model that gets used at personal injury firms is, I got this great case and I settled it for $1 million. I got this crappy case. They won't offer me they won't offer me a dime on it. I'm going to go try it. I'm like, nah, how about don't take that crappy case. Just don't take it.
don't waste 3 years working on that case.
Yeah. Don't do that. And then when you've got that really good case, tell them I'm not willing to settle for $1 million. I'm going to just go to verdict and we'll see where this ends up. Because there's this belief that we have some obligation to make a demand that they pay us money. When it comes to third-party liability, they have an obligation to protect their insured. They should be making offers the whole time, irrespective of what you're doing. So go get your verdicts. When you've got a banger, go bang it.
Go bang it. That's good for the self-image too, because once you start banging, apparently you get in a rhythm, you can get on a roll.
Well, and then eventually you do develop a better skill set of being a better trial lawyer. And, this case I just tried, that was because we settled with the anesthesiologist, it was a really tricky case. But we knew from the data that if we put on our case the way that we planned and executed, they were going to get popped with about 40, we were hoping 43%. They got 40. But still, it's $10 million on a $500,000 offer. That's a 20x return.
That sounds like a good investment.
Yeah.
But John, let me switch to category, because you and John Campbell and Alicia Campbell spent about 7 years doing the research and writing this book.
Yeah.
So give us the story here as to why, because you're a pretty successful trial lawyer, and this is a ton of fucking work. And, you make, I imagine, I don't know the number, but I'm guessing based upon the verdicts, a pretty comfortable living. And so why put yourself through all the trouble and all the work and all the research to write this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, John Campbell and I met many years ago, and we were working together kind of academically. I was an adjunct professor at the law school. He's a full professor at University of Denver at the time. And so we were kind of talking more academic in nature and kind of just getting to know each other. And then as fate would have it, Alex Alvarez, the great Alex Alvarez, and Bob Kelly are out from Florida in Vegas trying to see if these tobacco litigation would be good out here. So they wanted to run some focus groups, and John and I happened to, unbeknownst to each other, both be asked to come and observe. So we did. And so
And side note, they have a trial starting September 3rd here that they're coming to town for, September 4th, right after the
we're
holiday.
on that case with them. Yeah, we're doing that case with them.
I know. I was speaking to Alex because he's going to come to Huntington Beach next year with his MOMIS methodology and do some workshops and stuff and kind of show the world on the West Coast what they're doing down there in Florida and around the country.
He is.
MOMIS.
I'll tell you, people got to pay attention. That dude is amazing. Like it's so much fun working with their team. That is a really, 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 really talented firm.
No,
and
I
so is Kelly.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah, John Ustal. He was out in New York with us.
He's a stud.
Next year.
He's a great dude. I mean, these guys are just great. I mean, and one nice thing about I will say before we get too off topic, that one of the best things about my job is getting to work with all these amazing lawyers all the time. I got Satch Oliver coming in to consult. We're helping him out on a trial, and he's coming out in a couple of weeks to work with us for 2 days to get his opening dialed in. And so you get this opportunity to work with these amazing lawyers that are great, and then helping them advance, right? So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun working with those type of lawyers. It's also fun working with young lawyers that don't know much of anything because they're a blank slate. And so,
it's just fun.
Yeah.
The truth is, like, when people say, "Oh, like I would never have my kid become a lawyer," I'm like, that's crazy because I think this is the greatest job. I mean, obviously, I'm not, I don't have the same daily practice as that most people do, but I did for a long time. And, being a criminal defense lawyer, I didn't make a lot of money, but I really loved what I was. I mean, I generally really enjoyed what I was doing, going to court, meeting different people, all walks of life. And I mean, and now, I really love what I do now. I mean, I get to meet, like you said, so many kick-ass people, and the vast majority are just awesome. You get, like every profession, you got a couple dickheads here and there you got to deal with. But you know what? The vast majority of the great trial lawyers and all the people that are the rising ones are just awesome, amazing people, and such a pleasure to be around. So,
yeah,
I know what you mean as that gratitude part. Go back to
yeah.
that jury ball.
Getting back to the book, John and I, we started. I had been doing big data with another company back in 12 years ago. And so I was aware of using big data a long time ago. John and I probably about 7 years ago hooked up, and I'd seen errors in the methodology that was being used in the data that this other company did. And so I was getting results that were not trustworthy. And so it caused some hesitation. I knew fundamentally though, that more numbers create bigger patterns, which kind of like quiet the noise that you see in smaller focus groups. So you could have a focus group and it could go off the rails some way just because you have two weirdos on the focus group. Well, the odds of you having those same two weirdos over and over and over again is rare, right? Because it's like flipping a coin, heads and tails. If I flip a coin 10 times and I say, oh, well, 8 times it was head, it's not a true statement to say, well, then the odds of getting heads is 80% and tails is 20. We know that's not true. It's 50-50. But if I flip that coin 500 times, all of a sudden now I may be at 51, 52%, and you're getting more to the truth of what the real average is. So it's the same idea with big data. So John and I started this process, and then Alicia is an integral part of it. And we started doing a lot of our own cases using their data and proving it to be true over and over again, not just with us, but then consulting. And so as we started going, John and I said, let's write an academic article. So originally it was going to be a peer-reviewed article. And then as we started doing that, we were like, hey, let's not do that. Let's write a book for trial lawyers instead. And so a little over 2 years ago, I flew out to Madrid where John and Alicia live, and we spent several weeks drafting the first version in large part of the book. And it went through various iterations. It could get very technical and folks could get lost pretty easily when we start getting into the technical aspects of data science. And we wanted that not to happen. And so John and Alicia did the first 2/3 of the book were written by them. The back third was my portion of the book. And so we waited, and we had this, we knew we had this trial in New Mexico that was going, and we had run a series of different data studies on that over time. And we wanted to wait until that verdict came back to finish the book, because we believed that we had learned key lessons through repetitive data studies that would prove out with the result of this case. And really what the hypothesis is you need to keep testing until you get pushback on the number you're telling the jury the verdict is worth. What you tell the jury the verdict should be, you need to test that until you get some pushback on the upper end. And we tested, originally our max test in that case was 135 million. Then we tested up to $500 million, and then we went all the way to 1.1 billion. And because we did that, we actually asked the actual jury for 1.1 billion. And they returned, the projected verdict was 511 million. They returned 485. And so we took that hypothesis that we had a pretty high level of certainty we were right on, and then we proved it out in an actual trial, and we used that to finish the book. And so that's what kind of took so long to get the book done, is that we were just having more proof in the results. And then one last lesson, we wanted to be able to publish in this book versus doing a supplemental book 2 years down the road and talking about it then. So that's what happened. And so we finally got it done, and, we self-published, as we wanted to keep control of all of our rights and how and when we dispersed the book, and glad we did it that way.
Because I had asked you, before, professionally, what accomplishment, because you got a pretty solid career at 48, built a pretty good, substantial firm. You got a lot of big verdicts. You've been teaching, and you told me that, this book, the writing of this book was your opus. I mean, as far as professional accomplishments, this is it. Is that still?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I mean, verdicts, they happen, and there's lots of verdicts, and there's stories with every verdict. But this book was years and years and years of being outside the norm, doing something nobody else was doing, right? And thinking in a way that other people weren't thinking, and saying, I believe that this is right, and I'm willing to go put it all on the line and test it and prove that my hypothesis and John Campbell's hypothesis is right, that human behavior is very predictable, that what we were all taught, every single lawyer in America was always taught that jury trials are risky because you never know what a jury's going to do. Well, I took an approach 12 years ago, I think jury behavior is very predictable. I reject that. What everybody's telling me, I don't believe you to be true. And then actually going out there and putting in the work, and then to be, the thought leader with John and Alicia on this. Like, I kind of feel like we are the thought leaders on this.
I'd
And
say you are.
yeah, and that's kind of a cool thing because this will live on. I'll die and this book will still be there, and people will probably still be talking about JuryBall data, and like, did you get your JuryBall data? Now,
And on a side note, John and Alicia are teaching all day Friday and a half day Saturday on JuryBall, and everything you got to do with the data. I don't know if you looked at their their agenda, but I think it's going to go pretty in depth for that day and a half on the use
are
of
they
data.
both coming?
That's what the rumor is.
Wow.
That's what the rumor is, and I think Jennifer Brylow and Alicia are doing a presentation separately on combining big data and the regular focus groups and how to use them in conjunction with each other. So lots of education too beyond what you and John are talking about on the JuryBall methodology.
Yeah, I mean that's really important that people understand that it's the JuryBall data doesn't replace your live focus groups.
Right.
It's another tool.
Yeah.
And so you still got to do your live focus groups for sure. So I'm glad they're teaching about that because I oftentimes have people like, oh, I got my JuryBall data. No, you still need to dress rehearse. You still got to do your live focus groups. You still got to make sure you're ready to present it and it's working. It's all hard work. I mean, at the end of the day, when people hear about the JuryBall data, if you're able to get a JuryBall data report, you have put in a shit ton of work, more work than you've probably ever put in another case ever in your career earlier on. It requires you to be super organized and super prepared.
It's funny is that I just had a conversation with Mike Morse this morning because we just did a podcast yesterday because he got himself a good verdict of $75 million back in Michigan. And he's like, I forgot to mention to you, like, I'm getting in another trial in late September. And his buddy Jason Wechter, who they started out together. Jason's a good friend of mine from Detroit, and I went to high school with him. But he just got a $27.5 million verdict on a motorcycle case down in Detroit. And he used Campbell in the big data study, and was telling Morse a lot about it. So he's like, hey, I just got an email into Campbell to get the JuryBall study on this. I'm like, look at you, buddy. You win one trial. If you have to not walk into court for 15 years, you get a little trial bug, and now you're like going back at it. I'm like, because he only started preparing a couple weeks beforehand. And he's like, yeah, I'm starting preparing right now. I'm like, why not wait for 2 weeks? He's like, fuck off. Anyway, so
yeah,
see that? It's even catching on in Detroit, of all places.
I think that, if you really look at and pay attention to who's getting the big verdicts around the country, such a high percentage of them are using JuryBall data.
Oh,
I mean, they just are.
No, I know. My buddies Mohammed and Ray out of LA had this. They worked with you a little bit on that case. Came out, did a work day, but they went and got themselves $51 million. Had never seen the other side of seven figures before in a personal injury case. So it's the same thing with John Teller. Got his first 8-figure verdict. There's so many people I know that got their first 8-figure verdicts with the JuryBall. But it also causes people to question because I've had people say before, well, they come up with this study and these numbers. How do you know it's a placebo effect? It's the number that now the lawyer finally believes in a number instead of some random number they pulled out of the clear blue sky, which is basically how most non-economic damage numbers come about. I mean, because they're not based upon anything except the lawyer's belief. So how do you know, it's not the chicken and the egg theory? What came first? I mean, is it because you said, hey, because I say, you could just come up with a study without any research and say, hey, this is the number. And people go out and get the number because they finally believe it's something.
Well, except for we know from all the data studies we've done that the amount that you ask for actually vastly changes the outcome of the case just on what you ask. So when you go and tell the jury this is what the case is worth, that decision is going to change the value of the case by millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So we know that it's not just making it up. We know that's why we test different numbers in the studies we do, because we know we've learned over the, better part of a decade at this point, that the amount of money that we're telling the jury the case is worth is going to greatly dictate the end result. Because I've had a recent discussion with a very prominent person about, well, if your belief is that you're going to ask for 40 million, but you know the jury's only going to give you 22, shouldn't you just ask for 22? And I'm like, no, because you want the jury to give you the 40 because that's the right number. We just know statistically that the average is going to be 22. If you follow your logic and then you ask for 22, we know that average return on that's going to be like 14. And then if you go to 14, your average will be like 8. And if you go to 8, your average will be like 6. If you go to 6, your average will be, and you're going to work your way all the way down to eventually nothing.
Paying them to try the case.
Yeah. And so, but that idea of what the amount of money that is asked for, told to the jury that the value of the case is, I keep, by the way, when you hear me go from saying ask to tell, that's because Nick Rowley is getting it in my brain that we tell the jury that what the case is worth. We don't ask them for money. And so that's where you see me self-correcting, trying to break a 25-year-old habit of saying ask to saying tell. So that's the internal struggle you're seeing me as I keep catching myself as I tell the jury what the case is worth.
I was at his trial by human conference in Santa Barbara, and that's the lesson for sure I left with. We don't ask the jury anymore. We tell them what it's worth. But speaking of that, when you tell the jury that number, do you always give them a specific number, or do you do a range? And why or why not? Because that's always a big, debate, dilemma amongst people.
I tell them the number that I believe is right. I don't give ranges.
Yeah, but why do you not believe in ranges?
I just don't do it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. When I test my data, I know that if I tell them a number, I know I know what the most likely response will be to that. And that's what I'm trying to get. If I give them a range, I haven't tested until I test a range. I'm not going to do anything at trial that I haven't tested. That's why, to answer your question simply.
Let me ask, you said you have all these young lawyers coming in that just wait for their bar results, and these 5 and 6 figure lawyers are looking to be 6 and 7, 6 and 7, looking to be 7 and 8. So you're responsible in some way for, coaching these folks, their training, and being the person you are, which you're kind of methodical and systematic. What processes are you put in place to help these lawyers to become the lawyers they can be, or these lawsuits become the trial lawyers they can be? And the same question would be in general. It's like if somebody's fresh out of school or 10 years, 20 years into this game, but now they decide, you know what? I'm tired of settling shit. I want to become a trial lawyer. What's the process, according to Sean Claggett?
Well, if you were at our office right now, you'd see a conference room full of 6 attorneys, plus Will Sykes and Matt Granda. And they're going through 2-week training at the firm about the way we do things. So our trial college that we teach at TLU, it's that, and then it's even more intense than that because we have more time. But we want successful behavior traits repeated by everybody in the firm. And so what we're teaching everybody, and by the way, in that room, you not only have our just Marquise, who just passed the bar exam.
Marquise Hines.
He says, yeah, great dude.
He was at the New York Trial Lawyers University.
Yeah, that shocked me. I'm like, when I didn't even recognize him because I wasn't putting it 2 and 2 together that my law clerk was there. I didn't know, but no, yeah. So Marquise is he's really rooting for the other 3. Marquise graduated a semester early, so he took the bar exam and passed just recently. In May, he got the results. So these 3 attorneys, law clerks, were also law clerks with him in the firm, and but they're getting October. So he's really rooting on them so he won't be the bottom of the letterhead anymore, that he can have people below him. But also we have June in there. June Hong is going through the same, and Kevin Strong, who's a stud attorney, This guy's brilliant. I am just so fortunate and thankful that Kevin chose our firm to join, and what an addition to the team.
Where's he from?
Uh, Kevin came from Dennis Prince's office,
Okay.
and so Kevin is just an amazing, amazing guy, and we were so lucky to have him.
Okay, so we're giving them a 2-week trial at college. That's how we build trial lawyers. What else? But they got to do more than that. That's just learning the nuts and bolts of the Claggett and Sykes system.
Well, we work in teams at the firm. So, like Brian Blankenship leads one of the teams. Shannon Wise leads another one of the teams. But so like Brian's team is Brian Blankenship, Scott Lundy, Jonathan Wynn, Ben Reber, and Kevin Strong. Ben Reber is one of the law clerks. So those 5 are on a team, and they're working together on their cases. Their team they average about 13 cases per lawyer on that team, which is, I would like it to be less. We need to drop about, but resolve about 15 or 20 cases here by the end of the year to get their caseload back to where it should be. But that team approach is that everybody, when Ben Reber passes the bar, he'll start taking depots. And then Brian and Jonathan will go to a trial. And then Scott and Kevin will draft a lot of the complex arguments. And then it's kind of like this total team approach. So the idea being is that ultimately you may be like Scott Lundy is a brilliant legal writer. Brilliant. That's all he wants to do now. He doesn't want to go and argue in court. He doesn't want to go be a trial lawyer. And so a great team has people do their job. And so, part of that is not everybody wants to be a trial lawyer. Believe it or not.
But for the people that aren't at Claggett and Sykes, who are looking to up their game, so those folks that don't get the privilege of coming and sitting in the 2 weeks Claggett and Sykes, this is how we do it here, and have the team already have teams in place with processes. What advice do you give those people?
Well, I mean, the number one advice is to educate yourself as much as possible. I mean, I tell this to everybody that I talk to, is that you absolutely should have TLU on demand, and it's the greatest legal education resource ever created. And, I appreciate that you and I butt heads more often than not, and not to, build your ego up, but what you've done is a great legacy service that you'll die someday, but this will live on well past when you pass away. And that's kind of what your legacy will be, all this other stuff day to day, but you've created a library that it's a special thing, because you have the best lawyers all over the United States that have come together and shown what they do and tell why they do it. And that why, people need to understand this. It's really important. When these great lawyers tell you why they did it, that's the gold. Or as Rex Parrish says, that's the diamonds. Understanding why somebody did something means that you can then take that, put it in your tool chest, and then implement it when you need to. And so, that's first and foremost. And then the other thing is take less cases. Stop taking so many cases. It's just, when you take too many cases, you ensure failure on all of them. Not like true failure where it means you're not getting anything, but it's not going to be the success you want. Selling a client's case short is a failure. I mean, there is an ultimate value. I mean, there's times you have cases where things have gone off the rail. We just had a case like this where we had a client and things went off the rail, and the case had to get resolved. It couldn't get tried, despite amazing work by one of our partners. But it was acknowledged that we had to settle the case. And so we did. The case had to get settled. And so, kind of that you need to try the case. You try your best cases and settle the ones that have all your problems. There's no perfect case, so you're never going to have that absolutely perfect case, but you're going to have those cases that whatever issues you have, you're going to overcome. And when you run your data study and you get a 90% win rate case, go try that case. Unless they give you the value that the data says you should go try the case and go get the verdict. Just go try it. You're not going to lose.
Let me ask you this, because, obviously we record everything that we're doing at these live events, and it's all on TLU on demand because, Jordan, your partner, he cracks me up all the time. He's like, oh, I don't like TLU because there's so many great choices and I'm stuck with FOMO and I want to be in 3 places at once. And I'm like, isn't that a lot better than not wanting to see anything or being in the back of the room and just sending emails and surfing the web while somebody's up there blah, blah, blahing about something you have no interest in? And so my question is, what do you see the value in attending, TLU live or any conference live, as opposed to staying at home and, just watching it on the app on your phone a month after the conference?
Well, the ability to go back and rewatch it is huge, but the benefit of being at the conference, I think it goes without saying, you're developing personal relationships with people that matter. You may, if you're an attorney in Iowa and you come out to TLU Vegas and you meet attorneys from 30 different states and you create a network for yourself. So when your clients from Iowa inevitably go on vacation somewhere else and they get hurt, you have a relationship and can co-counsel with somebody. That's really important, and one of the things I've learned, and really, I think it became very clear during COVID, is how small the legal community really is coast to coast. And I think it's really important that we've learned who the great lawyers are in all these different states, because it blows me away that people on the West Coast don't know Tom Klein. Like, that seems like something that every lawyer on the planet would like. Of course, everybody knows Tom Klein.
Well, but Tom Klein doesn't speak at conferences on a regular basis, and so it's hard.
No, he doesn't. But he's one of the great trial lawyers.
I get that, but if you're a great trial lawyer and you don't speak anywhere and you don't teach anywhere, you're not going to be too well known outside of your out of your community. And if you don't write books, if you don't do any of that stuff, how is they supposed to know who you are?
It just, to me, seems strange but during COVID, you get to know all these people, and the East Coast and the West Coast got a lot closer to each other because of Zoom, because of the way that webinars are done now, the way that we're doing this right now. We're in different places, but doing a podcast. The world got a lot smaller during COVID, which is great.
In 2 months from now, hopefully, when my podcast lounge is done at my place here, we'll be able to do this in person. But you'll be the first. You'll be the first guest of the live podcast room.
I will say, I got a chance to see Sari's studio in her basement in her house. It's sweet. It's a good setup.
Did you take some pictures? Because I'm now we're in competition again for podcasting booths.
No, I did not. I did not take pictures. But, I will say that I think this is all great. I'm excited to be doing this podcast. I'm thankful that this last trial worked out the way it did, and
hell yeah, every trial.
Keep the streak going, and I had a goal when I was starting out doing this. Probably 10 or so years ago, that I wanted to get. Originally, it was 3 8-figure verdicts. I thought if I got 3, that'd be great. And then it was like, oh, I want to get 10. And so now I'm just working towards that goal. And that'll probably be done, some point in the next
month,
next year or so. No, probably another year or so.
Because as far as like the live conferences go, because I think that people miss out on. Right, the networking, the community, because this is a hard job. And when you have people who have got great success and you have their cell phone number and you have a problem, you can call them up and ask them a couple of questions to give you some insight. That's a game changer for a lot of people. It says, I mean, people at your firm, they got mentors, right? They got you, they got Will, they got, so many people there, Jordan, people have been there in it before, but most people don't. And this is really an opportunity to create those relationships because, I mean, the vast majority of the trial lawyers I know are some of the best human beings and giving of their time and of their mental brain power too, and selflessly. And, so there's that value. And like you said, the value of connecting with people around the country, because obviously we're here, we all got to make money. But, the bigger all the evidence shows, the bigger your network, the bigger your bank account. I mean, nobody, and people, the truth is that we all need more friends, and people want their friends to win, and people like, their friends to make money and to, and so people collaborate with their friends. But if you don't put yourself out there to make friends.
Part of this, I mean, what you're saying is true. I got real lucky with Andrew Garza out in Connecticut. I'd known Andrew for a long time, and our fate would have it that we end up partnering up out in Connecticut to create Claggett, Sykes, and Garza this year. And, Andrew Garza, you talk about a frickin' stud trial lawyer. He's like mid-30s, and he's already got 7, 8, and 9-figure verdicts under his belt. And he's going to be at TLU Vegas teaching breakout room. You got to listen to what this guy has to say. I mean, Garza's incredible.
Where'd you meet Garza?
Reptile.
Okay. Well, he was at TLU 2022 too, so you got to
So I don't know if you remember this, but you probably don't. He had just gotten that $100 million verdict.
I remember. He called me.
Yeah, and then we had the golf ball drop with the helicopter, and everybody that was at the tournament got a ball assigned to them, a number, and whichever ball got closest to the hole or in the hole when they dropped them down won like $1,000. Garza freaking won. I'm like, you don't need to win. You just got a $100 million verdict. You don't need this.
I haven't collected it yet. I do need it.
yeah. He still hasn't collected that money yet, so he's still on appeal. But that's another. What an amazing team we have out there, And again, it's how small the world gets, and we now are doing all these cases in New York and Massachusetts because of June we have a Claggett and Sykes office in New York, and then Massachusetts is in between New York and Connecticut, and we do a lot of work between both firms in Massachusetts. So we're out on the East Coast now doing stuff, and it's fun because a lot of what we're doing is different than what they've seen. And
it's like the East Coast, that place is so what's the word? It's like they're like they don't. A lot of them don't see. Like I was talking to this litigation partner at a big 30-person firm. He never heard of the voir dire on brutal honesty or the apple pie voir dire. I'm like, you've never even heard these voir dires? He's like, this is great shit, man. Because I gave him TLU On Demand because he wanted to do a webinar, but he's never watched one of our webinars. So like, dude, you got to look at the webinars and understand the process. And after he did, he calls me back. He's like, this is great. I didn't know this shit was out here. I got so many great new ideas for my case. I'm like, good, because that's the idea. Because it's just everybody in New York and like the East Coast, it's not everybody, but most people, they think it's the beginning and end of the world of thought and anything. And if it doesn't happen there, it must not be worth anything. And they're not very collaborative out there either. They're like we're all competitive, but they're competitive sometimes to a fault.
Well, I think that's, the goal of what I've always said is that we need to change that. I think that mentality predominated the United States for the most part, up until, the last 5 years or so. And then COVID happened. And then, this idea of the free exchange of information and knowledge became the standard. And in large part because, when this all started, I said, I'll help you, Dan, but you can't charge people. It's COVID. We need to get this information out for free. And to your credit, you found a way to make it work through some key vendors, like Priority Funding and Hector Miranda and Focus Graphics.
Those are the
strategic, those are the four that come to mind that during COVID were the four that really allowed, sponsored these free classes.
Allowed me to make a living while I was stuck by myself on my Zoom.
Right. But that was a big deal. And,
no, they got to make a living.
And that really changed the landscape of legal education in America for the plaintiff bar. And the plaintiff bar got so much better and the defense bar didn't. And the defense bar is now so far behind that
And
who knows?
it's being reflected in the verdicts these days. I mean, who's ever seen, verdicts from all over the place? I mean, Michigan is, especially he got that from the west coast of Michigan, Grand Rapids. Let's just say there's a lot of red over there. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but in general, but they just don't get big verdicts because people never really knew how to structure their arguments. To tell how to get it. And so you can't expect to get something you don't ask for or believe you're actually going to get. Let me ask you, Sean, we're going to kind of close out here. So where are you going from here? So you got this great success. Now you got Garza, Claggett, Sykes, and Garza out there. You got June. But where is Sean Claggett and Claggett Sykes headed in the next 5 to 10 years?
So we're due to have another meeting. We routinely meet to readjust our 5-year goal. I do believe that business plans are important. So I definitely within 10 years, the plan will be to a succession to turn the firm over. That will happen, and figure out who at the firm is at that point. We're kind of looking at those late 20-year-olds, early 30-year-olds. So in 10 years, they'll be late 30s to early 40s, which would be the prime time for them to take the firm and continue the growth of it. And so that would be on the 10-year. That would be on the back end of the 10-year. And then in the 5-year, I think my goal is to do more teaching academically at the law school, which I'm going to be teaching Vort Iyer at Boyd School of Law. I may also be teaching out at Chapman Law School if the cards line up right. So that would be important to me personally to teach there at those two universities.
Why Chapman?
Well, my wife happens to be on the board of governors of the university there, and my son goes to their film school, Dodge School of Film.
That's in Orange County, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In actually Orange, California. So really cool school. But that's why. And then I want to continue to publish. I plan to get 2 more books done in the next 5 years.
What are they on? Of course, got to ask, what are they on?
So Matt Granda and I, my managing partner and I, are writing a book called No Lazy Lawyers. And that book will be about the 10 qualities that make up a successful firm. And we're going to talk about that. So basically just best practices for success in the business of law. So it's in large part what we talk about at the trial school is there's the crossover between being a great trial lawyer and fiscal security and success go hand in hand, right? Because if you're a great trial lawyer, that will provide you a great sense of security long term. So, but that book will get done, and then the book that I'm writing with David Wall and Nick Rowley will get that one done. And so I think if I get those done and then update the JuryBall book probably in 3 to 5 years, that'll be what I do from a writing standpoint. And then verdict wise, we have so many big cases at the firm. My real goal is I'd like to see 10 of my lawyers have 8-figure verdicts. So that, because we know what we do is we can repeat it. And so the more lawyers that get 7 and 8-figure verdicts at my firm, I think that would be my goal. Professionally with me, I mean, I told you what my couple more 8-figure verdicts, 9-figure verdicts. And, I don't know how much more I need. My ego doesn't really actually need any more verdicts at this point. If I stopped today, I could look back on my career and say that I did a fine job as a trial lawyer. I really want to see it. I want to give it to other people. So that's the 5-year goal. I think in large part, you're hearing what my goals are.
I think you've missed did I hear you say I want to see Dan Ambrose get an 8-figure verdict? I'm going to coach him into that. That way I can prove anybody is trainable. Everything we've been talking about here is doable because I took this handicapped kid named Dan Ambrose and who could barely get a sentence out, and I got him coached up with the right rhetoric and the right data and the right preparation to go into trial, kick some ass. I don't think I heard that, but
that was not on the 5-year. That may be on the 15-year goal. That may take a few more years. No, Look,
I'll be
think
72 then, but that's okay.
by then you'll calm down maybe a little bit.
Maybe.
You got the energy. You got the energy of a typical 18-year-old kid, and you're like in your 50s. It's amazing.
Well,
Which is also why you're so good at your job.
I'm on a 57-day countdown, buddy. And if people think there's pressure in this game, there's a lot of pressure because there's a lot of people counting on me and my team, and you and everybody's counting on this. Every vendor, everybody that attends, and so I got time to have less energy. This shit's got to go. It's got to rock at a whole new level. At a whole new level. Okay, and then this is going to be my last question for you, and then we're going to wrap this up. Yeah. So you do a lot of teaching. You write books. You coach. You teach at law schools. This is a huge, this is a bigger investment of time in teaching than, anybody else I know puts into. A lot of people teach, and a lot of people teach a lot, but nobody teaches more than you do that I'm aware of. So where does that drive? Where does that desire, motivation to teach? Where does it spring from?
Well, when I was a younger lawyer, I was in a situation where I was desperate to learn, and there was nobody there to teach. And I had referred a case to a very successful trial lawyer here locally, and the case resolved. And I had asked him to help me, and he said he was too busy, and it just left this terrible feeling of disappointment, of frustration. It's like, it didn't feel good. It didn't make any sense. I'm like, I don't understand how you're too busy. We were supposed to be in trial on Monday and Sunday. So if we're supposed to be in trial all day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would imagine your schedule is wide open. So you can't spend a half a day with me helping me? And I just made you $1.4 million for a month of work? You don't have a half a day? So that left a feeling that was really, I didn't like the way that felt. And I just made a commitment at that point that I would never do that. And then I think probably a big, being really self-reflective on this, a big part of helping other people is I get more joy out of their success than I do my own success. So my verdicts don't get me, I don't get real excited when I get verdicts anymore. And I miss that. I do miss it. But when somebody else gets a verdict, oh, dude, I am so excited and so happy, and I get this level of euphoria for other people. Like, I'm genuinely super pumped up and ecstatic for them. Like, I'm so happy. And I think that's probably, like, being brutally honest, I like that feeling a lot more when other people get the verdict. I love the process of putting a case together. I love that process. But the verdict doesn't drive me. It's a horrible anxiety while the jury's out. That lets you still know you're alive, right? And vulnerable. But when the verdict comes back, usually it's like, okay, that's good. But it's been a long time since I've had a verdict where I was just like, felt any emotion that wasn't almost just pragmatic,
Relief.
So, yeah, relief. Relief, but it's almost different than that. It's just like, yeah, I shouldn't have had to try the case. I wish they would have just believed what I was telling them. It's like, how many times do I have to go get a verdict that I told you what the verdict was going to be before the trial? Like this last trial, I told the mediator, this is what the verdict's going to be. I was off by $200,000 on value and 3% on comparative. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I did this whole trial only to prove that I told you I knew what was going to happen.
What'd you offer to settle that case for? Your last offer?
We were willing to take their policy limits.
Which was?
Well, somewhere between 3 and 6. They never actually produced the full policy. So the policy they produced said 3, but there was a reference to a rider, which we believe made it 6. Now it doesn't matter. It's a moot point because they owe us more than the policy anyways, and they're going to have to pay it.
All right. Well, I will see you later tonight because I'm going to come by your judicial fundraiser at 5:30 and visit a bit because you'll be there. I can stop by anytime, but you're never there. See, now you'll be there.
I'm here and I love being back. It's
Nice.
been, I have not been in the Vegas office for 3 months, so it was a long time since I've been here. So I'm happy to be back.
And when's your next trial?
We start trial in. I was supposed to be in trial right now. It's settled on Sunday, thank God. And then we start on September 16th. And then we got
Kyle Cotner?
Yep. And then we got another trial starting in Sacramento on the 23rd or 24th.
Who's the one in Sacramento with?
John Stralen.
Oh, he did that last case with him. He's such a nice guy. I know him. He's from I know him from Trojan Horse days.
Oh,
Isn't
okay.
that crazy?
Yeah.
And I actually know, Sean, I know she was from Trojan Horse days because little known story that Sean did a Trojan Horse back in 2019, and we needed some corrections. And I'm like, hey, I had this chair in the middle because that was a good spot to people for the demonstration. And I'm like, well, wait, the learning chair. Sean's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, I'm sorry, this is a genius chair. You're like, okay, that's the proper place where I will have a seat.
Now that he brought it up, I will tell you that Dan Ambrose was as rude to me as possible. And it basically became a very uncomfortable situation for him. Probably more uncomfortable for him than for me, because I basically told him, get the fuck out of here. You're not telling me what to do.
And we'll leave it at that. And it's been like that since the last 6 years we've known each other.
It has.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks for visiting, Sean, and I'll see you.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Ready to train with the Titans and set records with your verdicts? Register for our live conferences and boot camps at triallayers.university.com. Start getting your reps in before the big event by going to tluondemand.com to gain instant access to live lectures, case analysis, and skills training videos from the trial lawyer champions you love and respect, as well as pleadings, transcripts, PowerPoints, and notes for a roadmap to victory. Join the group that continues to get extraordinary results. Trial Lawyers University, produced and powered by LawPods.